Hey, Rebel Bankers, welcome back to the Real Estate Money School. I'm your host, Chris Noggle, and I've got an exciting guest, a guest that used to be right across the pond from where I'm at here in Buffalo, New York. So somebody that's not a stranger to snow, not a stranger to cold, and not a stranger to doing real estate deals. So Brian Adamson from BBR Education Group is going to join us today. He's going to talk about what he does, what he did, and his journey. And we're going to kind of talk a little bit about his story and how he's got where he's at, which is pretty impressive. He's from Detroit, now living in Orlando, sunny Orlando. And we're going to talk about what kind of sparked that movement down there. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris. Happy to be here, man.
Awesome. Happy to have you. Before we get into your story, let me talk to all of you watching this. So all of you watching this episode, I want to commend you first because you're taking action. You're actually doing something to learn. And, you know, on your journey to becoming a rebel banker, you're going to be doing a lot of this. You're going to be doing a lot of learning, a lot of knowledge seeking. But the thing that I often find that everybody misses is not just getting the knowledge, it's the application of knowledge. So at a certain point, you're going to have to step off the train of getting knowledge and you're going to have to step into the world of taking action and leaping. And that's a scary world. It involves fear, the unknown, changing things, changing your mindset and doing things you're not comfortable with doing. And you know what? Every single one of us had to take that leap. You're going to too. So I got a challenge for you. I got a challenge for you to take action on something. And it's a really easy thing to take action. So this book right here, Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery, I'm going to give it to you for free, but it's going to involve you having to do one thing. Or, hey, why don't we double that down? How about the Private Money Guide? I'll give you that book for free too. So you can get Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery and the Private Money Guide for free. All you need to do is click the link and pay the shipping. So let's see how much action you're willing to take, because those two books will change your money future. That much I can promise. So we'll see how many of you actually take action after watching this, because we are tracking that. And I want to see how many of you are knowledge seekers or how many of you are action takers. So Brian, you're an action taker. Well, tell me a little bit about what you do, what your business does today.
Sure. So today we actually have a worldwide mentorship program. It's called the Apprenticeship Program. I would say our core competency of what we do is teach investors how to invest in real estate remotely via fix and flip, cash flow, as well as wholesale. And so, that has given us the agility to kind of get wide in our reach. And so we've got students in 4 countries right now that are all investing domestically here in the United States. And then, of course, we have students kind of spread throughout the United States as well in our mentorship program. And so, again, we just essentially teach them how to invest, how to set up the infrastructure, how to not be relegated to one market so that if it does dry up or things become more challenging, they can pivot into other markets and know how to get there strategically and where they should be placed at.
I saw that when I was on your website. It looked like you had some students that were maybe, I don't know, I'm totally going to guess, but Scandinavian or Denmark or something like that.
Denmark,
just from their,
was
it? Oh my
Denmark,
gosh.
Afghanistan, Japan right now. So yeah,
that's incredible. I can't believe I actually got that right. Denmark. I've been over there quite a bit, with snowboarding. When I was a pro snowboarder, I was over in, Finland and Austria. So I kind of picked up on a little bit of the accent there, but yeah, it was just a wild guess. Awesome.
Yeah.
So remote real estate investing, that's interesting. And, I hear a lot about, remote wholesaling and, virtual wholesaling, but not very much about what you do. So can you just dive one layer deeper into that apprenticeship? So let's just say somebody calls you from Denmark. What does that process look like? What do you do with them?
Sure. Well, initially, Chris, and I'm sure you know this, everything starts with the goals, right? And so, try to figure out what's the short-term goal, what's the long-term goal, and then identify what's the strategy. So depending on if they say, I want to make residual money, then we need to look at a cash flow model for those individuals. If they say, I want to, increase my income by $100,000 this year, then we could look at an active income strategy such as, wholesaling or flipping for that matter. And for a lot of the ones that flip, we essentially just show them how, number one, to source the properties. Okay. Very important. How to source the properties, both on market and off. And then how to go through the vetting process. So, talking to contractors, how to appropriately vet them and make sure you're as insulated as we can be as investors. As you know, contractors are the Achilles Heel to our business.
Don't even get me started.
You can't win without good ones, man. And so, we teach them how to vet those individuals as much as possible and how to mitigate their exposure when dealing with them, how to set up their draw schedules and making sure that they're not letting the money get ahead of the contractors and keep the contractors honest by keeping their work ahead of the
Let me
money.
stop you right there, folks.
All
For
right.
all of you listening, what Brian just said is worth every penny you could ever spend to learn that one piece of information, how to mitigate your risk with contractors, how to get contractors that are good, how to basically put contracts and draw schedules and everything in place to keep them honest. Because I can tell you, I learned the hard way. 260 flips or somewhere there in between, we were getting really, really off base with what we knew we should be doing because we got so busy. And then we were just pretty much just finding any contractor we could to keep up with our volume. And in doing so, we started getting screwed by contractors, having contractors take our deposits and just disappear. Openly right now, I've got 3 open lawsuits on contractors, liens on their properties, and I don't know if I'll ever collect a dime. So don't ever get yourself in that position. But what Brian's teaching right there, I didn't mean to stop you, Brian, but that's so critical. And if you say something that's important, like I'm going to stop and just kind of really dive into that, folks, one of the hardest things about flipping houses is just what he said. Contractors. They're I don't even know. They're like a whole different breed of human beings in some cases. And you got to know how to manage them, how to protect yourself with them, and how to structure everything you're doing with them. So I didn't mean to cut you off, but that was just so important.
No, that really was a good stopping point. Certainly. I mean, myself, I lost $500,000 in this business by way of contractor problems. Right. And so that's one thing that we really hone in on in the program. Because again, it is the Achilles heel of our business. I don't care if you're doing commercial, if you're doing smaller multifamily, single family, it doesn't matter. Without good contractors, I don't care how good the deal looks. It just won't be a profitable one in the end. So we really
or they'll cut corners and you'll get a finished product, especially if you're doing it remotely, you'll get a finished product that's not even something that anyone's going to buy, or the building inspectors come in and be like, nope, this isn't it. And then all of a sudden your contractor's gone.
Absolutely.
I just think that's so important. And no one ever talks about it on this podcast. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And then just to go a step further with redundancy, then we show them how to identify a boots on the ground person for them, right? That can hold the contractors accountable, kind of be that person looking over their shoulder and running the project effectively for them while they are remote. And then just give them all the framework, not so that they're a subject matter expert in construction, but that they have a vein of competency to analyze deals, come up with their own rehab bids, even from afar, and have something to fact check against the contractors as they're submitting their bids and whatnot. We certainly encourage them to get more than one contractor bid when at all possible, and then, adding another layer of protection by way of home inspection. And then just giving them the blueprint. Look, what we do in this business is rinse and repeat. A lot of people get caught up in what they see on TV, HGTV, and nothing against those guys. But
I had a show on HGTV, so no pun intended.
Yeah,
It isn't real, man. You don't flip a house in 23 minutes. I'm sorry.
Exactly. And it's not that taste specific. We have to take our own personal taste out of this thing and look at what do the comps show us, right? We start with the end in mind, we reverse engineer the process from there, and we trust the data. Let the comps dictate what the scope of work should be, and don't overcomplicate it. And then it's just a function of getting the right people, going through basic blocking and tackling, and rinse and repeat the process.
Yeah, no, I think that there's a lot of knowledge and a lot of value in exactly what you just said, because a lot of times that, like people are teaching people and they're teaching all the fundamental basics, and, real estate investing really is a formula. It's a process, but there's certain things that are missed in that teaching by so many of the big education companies, like the ones I went through. They don't get into the weeds and tell you about the real life stuff, kind of like the TV shows. When we had our show, when you watch our Risky Builders HGTV show, you're watching it, you didn't see all the things that happened. You didn't see that when we took the siding off, termites had eaten the whole front of the house, and then all of a sudden we had building inspectors crawling all over the place, and it's like disrupting a hive of yellow jackets when you disrupt the building inspectors. You can't just kill them. Like you just can't, and they don't go away. But, there's just so many things you don't see behind the scenes that the only way to learn them is to find somebody that has failed, somebody that has gone through that process and really, really understands the things that they made mistakes on, so they then can teach you as a mentor through wisdom what to do and what not to do, because I think the what not to do is more important than the what to do.
Chris, I
So
couldn't agree with you more, man. I had a very similar experience as you did going through a larger education company. And I never, like, I don't make any excuses. I take full accountability. And I think there's value in even bad experiences, right? And so, not that I had a bad one, but I was just, I hate to use the word victim, but another word escapes me at this point in time. But, they taught you how to do everything when everything went right. And so I got really good at that part. But when I started to face adversity, I didn't really have anybody that can pull me out of the fire or tap me on the shoulder and stop getting me to hemorrhage money in the way that I was. And so I found that to be very important. And so to your point, when I started my program, it was very important to me to kind of fill those gaps, right? And make sure that we're teaching people about the ugly stuff that's normally not talked about from the front of the room because it's not sexy. It's not the buzzwords to get everybody excited. We want to talk money, money, money. But, we don't learn how to not do certain things, then that money won't ever exist for us in the end.
That's well said. And, being, that I had an education company as well. And my education was born from the big education company that we went through. So we created ours out of the inefficiencies of the big one. And it was exactly like what you said, the things that they don't teach you, the things that they won't teach you because it's not sexy from the front of a 500-person seminar or a 500-person summit. So, we did it. We stopped taking students on in 18 because we changed directions and focused more specifically on what we were really good at. And that was teaching people how money really works. And I'm glad to hear that you're still in it, teaching people, holding their hand, not just saying, okay, here's this digital program. You're literally mentoring and walking people through the process through, it's not a bus tour, but what do you call your tour that you do?
So ironically enough, after 2 years of doing our property field trips, where we took students from all over the world and we would go into a market where we were actually doing work in and take them around our properties and teach them the game from A to Z. I stopped doing it 2 months ago because I'm now focused more on freeing myself up to do some commercial acquisitions and such. That's kind of where I'm going now as an investor. And then giving my students, all of the other time. So, but yeah, we were doing that property field trip, and now it's just one-on-ones that I do. And, we facilitate that, via Zoom or phone call, et cetera. But it's hand holding at its finest, and, accountability, all those healthy things to produce fruit. Because obviously we know what we missed throughout the process. Right. And so, because of that, we're able to kind of know what people need. So as long as, they've got the attitude, and not even always the aptitude, but the attitude and the willingness to take action, then we could come in and supplement the things that they're missing.
No, it's so valuable. And I wish there was more people doing that, but it is a tough thing to scale. It's a tough thing to really stay true to, but you're doing it, and you're making, you're cutting back on some things to make sure that you're giving the students the time and the hand holding that they need. And there's a lot to be said about that. So Brian, let's take a little trip back in time. Like, let's go back to before you were a real estate investor. What did you do? What led you down this path to become a real estate investor? Let's talk about that story.
So grew up in the inner city streets of Detroit, bumped my head more than I could count. And just was always looking for something that I could grab hold to that was legit and tangible and sustainable. And, went to college, flunked out my freshman semester, lost my academic scholarship, then returned after having my daughter at 18. And,
wow.
Yeah, man, and went back and, got my 4-year degree, and had a different level of focus, obviously, when I went back. But while I was there, my junior year in college, a friend of mine in Detroit was flipping houses at the time. Unbeknownst to me, I didn't really know what all that meant. But as you know, 2006, 2007, we were at the height of the market. This is all, me looking back, because I didn't understand that at the time. But what I did know was that any and everybody could get a mortgage. So as long as they had a post and they could fill out an application, the banks were giving everybody money. And so these buyers of his, they weren't financially savvy enough to really close on their property. And so I would come in, leverage my college refund check in the form of a gift to them as a deposit. And then on the backside, he would give me a return on my investment. And so we did those. I was 22 at the time. And then that piqued my interest enough to where I bought 3 rental properties of my own, built a new construction home in 2007, which was also at the height of the market, unbeknownst to me. And so everything that I had leverage on was upside down within 18 months of purchase. I was personally exposed because I did everything in my name. I didn't realize the value of asset protection and having LLCs and things of that nature. And so 2008 to 10, though, fortunately,
Hold
because
on one sec, Brian. I love that you said that. I'm so sorry to stop you, but there's so many important things that you're hitting on here. You were buying everything in your personal name. Tell me about that.
yeah, so I was
You went through
ignorant
this
to it.
education, or was this before the education?
This was well before I
Okay,
didn't
okay.
get into it for my first 8 years. So this is all school of hard knocks for Brian, right?
This is the same mistake I made. I was
Yeah,
buying everything in my personal name, and that's how I ended up losing everything in 14. I had to sell every property because the bank pulled my funding, and it
yeah,
was because of exactly what you just said. So again, you were on such a roll, but like sometimes there's just that golden nugget that you say, and it's just funny. Like you made the same rookie mistakes that I made because I didn't have that mentorship and that
absolutely,
education.
absolutely, man. And it's I, I just didn't know. Ignorance is expensive, and we can't afford it. I tell people that all the time. And my ignorance, but at least I had enough sheer will, as you did, and to take action. We just did it the wrong way, and so I was personally exposed. My credit was in shambles by way of losing those properties. Um, but fortunately, because I started out lending money in the capacity I did with my refund check, I built up enough liquidity that when the market contracted, I was able to buy a little over 20 doors, single family, from 2008 to 10. So I was 23, 24 years old. Graduated college, was working in corporate America, and had my rental portfolio, and things were seemingly good until um, it was, 13, 14, we were still in the down market, especially in the Midwest. Things hadn't recovered the way that they should have. And, I ended up needing a lot of work at a lot of the properties, right? Because I bought them, but I didn't buy them right per se. And started selling them off on market. Now, not even thinking, I started out leveraging my refund checks in college to get my start. I should have, if I would have understood the power of OPM, I was doing it in a practical sense, but not from a vein of understanding. I could have went and borrowed money to fix up my properties, which were free and clear at the time, and kept my portfolio as opposed to selling them off in the down market because I didn't have a mentor to instruct me otherwise. And that same portfolio that I spent close to 200 grand on back then would have been worth $2.8 million in Detroit today. So it cost me a couple $1,000,000 very early in my career. Again, just from not having that person, that navigation system to say, oh, no, don't do it that way. Do it this way. So, but somewhere along the way, I did hear about LLCs. I finally made that conversion. Credit did recover. But one thing, and I want to touch on this because a lot of people just don't talk about it enough. And that's when we think of a union, right? Husband and wife, even boyfriend and girlfriend for that matter, we're so in a hurry to always do things together, right? And for me, I found nobody taught me this. It just was like a common sense thing. I never commingled myself and my wife. And so that was very advantageous as an investor because while I took, hits personally, we were able to still leverage her in the process while I recovered. So I just want everybody to be conscious of that. And that's just my opinion. It's not, anything that anyone has to do, but just think of it as a team. If it's a true team, you should be able to leverage both players.
We did the same thing. Yeah. I took a lot of the grunt on, well, none of that stuff during that period when I lost that, and none of it was exposed to her. And then
Yeah.
when we dove back in from 14, straight through to today, we basically started leveraging both of ours because she had better credit than I did because I'd gotten beat up.
Yeah.
And then we just basically brought her in. And so very, very important things. And, it's personal preference because a lot of times, what are you going to do? Say to your significant other, hey, I don't want you part of this because, they're not going to think of it the way that we are because we've been
Right.
there. They're going to think of it, oh, what, you don't want me to be part of this? Well, as we all know, if you're married, what's yours is hers, what's hers is yours.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
By
So, that's kind of my backstory. And then eventually, after 8 years of doing it on my own, I went out, found a big education company, finally opened my eyes up. Like it was like real estate heaven. I was like, oh, this is how it's really done. And so, went out and started flip. So up to that point, I'd only been doing cash flow and private lending. And then I finally got into flipping once I found this group of individuals and went out and was very aggressive. My business plan, my first year was to do 6 to 8 acquisitions a quarter. I was hitting that through 3 quarters, was printing money essentially Had raised over $1 million in private money, was using that in conjunction with hard money to fund my deals. And then that's when I started having infrastructure problems. Contractors started to become who they were, and taught me some very invaluable lessons that, put me in debt. I lost a little over $500,000 in the process of figuring all of that out. And God started to kind of place the right people in my life at the right time, and got things right-sided and started back Cadillacing again. And then just kind of organically was helping people out in that group that I was a part of, who were struggling to find deals. And you touched on something when we started the show, which was very important. And that is, it's not enough just to get the knowledge. It's got to be applied knowledge. And what happens is people go through these courses and they don't take immediate action. And in result of that, by the time that they get around to doing it, it's very hard for them to get traction. It's very hard for them to stay motivated, because you got to go through the no's to get the yeses. And, these people had spent a lot of money, and essentially mortgaged their future in the form of education, and couldn't get anything done. And so I started helping people. I started to have a surplus of deals, and I would help people kind of get into their first deals and such. And that was the start of what my mentorship program evolved into. Started to bring in some resources, my personal business banker. We help people not only make money, but then teach them about tax shelters and good CPA practices to really increase their bottom line as well.
Yeah, and that stuff's all vitally important. A lot of people jump into real estate thinking, like maybe they're a contractor or a handyman. They jump in thinking they've got a big leg up over everybody because they can do the work themselves, when really sometimes that's the biggest hindrance. Just on the phone with a gentleman today who did exactly that. He could do all the work, but by him doing all the work, it meant he was always working in the business, not working on the business. And, although from the surface that seems like a good thing, because maybe you cut your costs by being able to do the work, but you prolong the time, and time is money. And not only that, you're so caught up into what you're doing day in and day out that you're never actually focusing on your business and building it. You're never focusing on bookkeeping. You're never focusing on scaling and proper, business structure and protection plans and financial planning. Like the book Profit First, like that book is invaluable for real estate investors. Just take the profit off each deal and put it in a separate bank account, and then start segregating your bank accounts. I can't tell you how many people I help, or how many people I speak to, that still operate out of one bank account. Like all their deals, all their real estate deals are all going into one bank account, yet they're always saying, "Oh, I don't know where the money goes." Of course you don't know where the money goes. Like you're not practicing good bookkeeping skills, and you're commingling all the money from all these different properties. Like, how do you even know which property is profitable and which one's not? Oh, I guess I really don't. Well, maybe that's where you start, and you start fixing those problems. Otherwise, you have a lot of the problems that I hear. And it's so funny, Brian, like your story when you're going through that is, that's your story. But I have every single person on this, well over 100 guests on this podcast, and I have everybody tell their story. And you know what? We're all the same. We all make the same stupid mistakes. We all learn the same stupid things that all could have been prevented if we just stopped stepping over the dollar to pick up the penny every single day, thinking, "Oh, I can do this myself. Oh, I don't need to pay." Or maybe just not seeking the proper knowledge because we think that we saw it on TV. This is easy, and it's just, it's funny how many of us have that exact same story of the mistakes. And the mistakes are almost always the same. You started scaling and getting big. Well, we were doing 20 some flips a month in the peak, and doing 20 some flips. I'm really good with bookkeeping and all that, but still cash flow became a major problem. And not just cash flow, contractors. And although I didn't lose 500,000, but we probably pushed about 100 grand that we just, I guess you could just say, we gave it to charity is a simple way. We gave it to the contractors that ran off with the money, but that could have all been avoided had we just had certain processes and procedures in place that somebody could have taught us. And we just didn't. We had to learn the hard way.
Yeah. And, and again, it wasn't 500 to the contractors per se, but in result of the contractor's poor performance, you got carrying costs and you got leverage and all the rest of it. And so that whole snowballed into, a little over $500,000. And one thing that I would encourage new investors, especially, we get to a place as new investors to where we don't have a lot of resources when we start up. And I'm saying resources in the form of people. And sometimes that could be money as well. But to me, you can go raise money. The deal raises the money. And what happens is we let people stay around too long, right? We get into a vein of hemorrhaging money and hoping that people will change. And Maya Angelou said it best: when people show you who they are, believe them. Like, these people will continuously cost you more money. You're better off cutting ties and stopping the project until you find viable resources to come in and help you get things right-sided, as opposed to keep throwing good money after bad, hoping that these individuals are going to show you something different than what they have.
I think that's an important thing. That's something that everybody could learn some important lessons from. So during your journey, what would you say was your biggest internal obstacle that you had to face through all this?
Um, hmm.
Because you went through a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I, I think, I think getting rid of people sooner, honestly. I've got a really big heart. I'm a giver by nature. And, I like to bring out the best in people, and I also kind of expect that people will um, evolve in that way, and they don't. I certainly could have stopped the bleeding much sooner if I would have just had, enough nerve to just stop the bleeding and cut ties and deal with the outcome thereafter. But I would say that's probably been my biggest shortfall. And I've developed that muscle. I mean, this is all the evolution, right? So now 14 years in it, I'm slow to hire and quick to fire. So that that's something you develop over time.
I always say our journey is always just beginning. It doesn't matter where you're at, how successful you are, how much money you have, what you drive. Your journey is just beginning. There's always more to learn. And they're all in the second, I always tell people the second you stop, being willing and accepting to learn new things is the second you're going to fail. It's the second that failure is going to creep in, because that's the point where your arrogance kicks in, and it's just going to be a downward spiral from there. Been there, done that, 100%. Making lots of money as a financial advisor, just everything was clicking along good. The arrogance got in the way. I stopped wanting to learn because I thought I knew what I didn't know. And then all of a sudden, there goes that downward spiral. It's like being on a roller coaster. Yeah. But you can certainly stop that roller coaster just by surrounding yourself with the right people, getting the right people in your network, the right mentors and coaches. And, even today, like, people are always asking me, like, how did you find your coaches? I'm like, what do you mean? How did I find them? I'm still finding them. I still pay significant money every single month. Sometimes I cringe when I have to write the checks because as you kind of evolve, you start getting, higher and higher level coaches and higher level mentors, which cost more money, quite frankly. And a lot of times, like, it's, when I write these checks, it's just like, what they're giving me is nothing like what I used to get when I wrote smaller checks for coaches, but they're giving me the right steps, and they're holding me freaking accountable in a way that, is invaluable. Sometimes you just need somebody just to literally just kick you in the ass and tell you do this and hold you accountable to do something that you said you were going to do. And that's what a good coach does. They hold you accountable. And I'm sure you hold your students accountable.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I mean, I tell people all the time, I don't sell education because that's just what I like to do. I sell it because I believe in it. I do it. That's the way I live my life. I told the story earlier this week how I've been taking Sundays off. I'm like, okay, I got to have a rest day, right? And I call it active rest. This past Sunday, I was on the phone with my consultant/coach for 4 hours. And people are like, well, you weren't supposed to be working. I said, listen, that's therapeutic for me. Right? Because entrepreneurship is a lonely place. We need that navigation system. All of us do. I don't care how big you get. As a matter of fact, the bigger you get, to your point, you need not only one perspective, you need multiple perspectives. So we find ourselves having multiple coaches. They give us different vantage points, and the money that you spend, and trust me, I cringe as well writing those checks sometimes. But when I think about the way that having a coach and a consultant impacts my bottom line, it's normally a 5x investment. It really is. Mm-hmm. And I think that's true for everyone. You're going to spend the money one way or the other. And so, as opposed to throwing the money away, invest it. Find your tribe, find a viable, incredible source, invest the money, because you will increase that by 5, 10x. If you put the work in and take what they're teaching you, you certainly could go out and streamline your success much faster than you would ever do on your own.
I couldn't agree with that more. I mean, and it's sometimes when I look at a coach, I look at somebody that's living the life I want to live. I look at somebody that's got the traits and is doing the things that I want to be doing. I don't look at somebody that's not living the life I want to live. And once I start working with them, and there's a barrier, like they'll give you a little bit of time, out of respect, because the most successful people are the most available. But at a certain point in time, there has to be some exchange. Okay, there's an exchange of time for something. And in most cases, you write a check for that. And when you write that check, number one, that holds you accountable. You're writing a check, so you are going to take action. It's why people use trainers to get in shape, right? You could go do it yourself. You could go out in your backyard, run sprints up and down, do lunges up and down, go find something to do pull-ups and push-ups, and you could do it all yourself. But you won't do it because you don't have somebody holding you accountable. It's the same reason. It's a mindset, and we all have it. It's not your fault. It's not my fault. We all need that. And one thing I found with the coaches and the mentors that I use and that I pay, I not only take their advice, but they give me guidance, sometimes very small little tweaks. But the other thing that they end up doing is they end up somehow in some way, the longer you work with them, they become integrated into your business because they learn your business. They learn you. And if you're doing things that they're attracted to, and usually a coach and a mentor is at a much higher level than you are. So, they have the ability and the resources to kind of do things with you that you normally wouldn't. And now all of a sudden you might be this coaching relationship might also lead into a partnership, an opportunity in that sense for a new business or your existing business. They come in and provide resources and things you don't have. There's so many things that happens, but the problem is too few people or too many people, and that, however you want to say it, look at it and say, well, I can't afford that. You can't afford not to do that is what you can't do, but you got the wrong mindset thinking you can't afford it because you're affording to do all these things that do nothing to get you any further in your life, yet you fail to do the one thing that will get you to the life that you want. And I think it's a tragedy and a shame, but unfortunately, we just can't help everybody. And that's just the reality of it. The people that seek the knowledge, that need the help, that want the help, they have to find their way. And then once they do, the door opens and there's Brian, there's Chris. We're just waiting on the other side of the door, but I'm not going to come knocking on their door. They got to find me.
You're absolutely correct, Chris. You're absolutely correct. Because what I found is that, you can see so much potential in people, but when you have to chase them, it never works. It never works. No. And to your point, unfortunately, the way that we're wired, more often than not, people do need that vested interest by way of a check to motivate them. Flip side of that, man, Chris, and I know you've seen it, it's a ton of people. And I still cannot fathom how people make these investments in themselves and then don't follow through.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, these big education companies, they made hundreds of millions of dollars on people paying big chunks of money to learn this. And then these people, I remember I went to my first summit and I went really prepared. I still have the 3-ring binder. I went out and I found a bunch of deals and I came to this summit with these deals. I had, I think, 3 or 4 assignment deals ready to go, thinking, oh my God, everybody's going to have this. Everybody's going to be bringing deals. Everybody's going to have stuff. Nobody did. I ended up assigning 2 deals at that first summit. And I ended up leaving that summit saying, holy crap, I thought we were behind the 8 ball. We're so far because these people haven't even started. They haven't even got their first deal. They haven't made their first call. What have they been doing all this time? Because the way I did it is I spent a lot of money and that information, man, I dove in and I just took action. I made a lot of bad decisions and did some things wrong, but man, sometimes just taking action is the most important thing. And that was the realization when I was around 500 other people that paid what I did or more in a summit. And I'm looking around and I'm saying, how come none of these people started? And then the funny thing is, fast forward 5 years from that point, the people that were the ones that were doing stuff there, they're now like doing unbelievably well. But, it's just the 5% rule.
It is, man. And, real estate is such a contact sport. And, people, they want to have it all figured out before they start. I mean, I started from a $7,000 college refund check 14 years ago. Had no idea that it would evolve into what it has today. But the reality is this. When you take action and you start to go out and you get your no's, no doesn't always mean no. It means not right now. And so, I can't tell you how many people that I've, presented a deal to raise money for a deal and they weren't ready at that point in time. but 8 months later they reached out and it just so happened I had something that was a perfect fit for them. And from that, you reach the next person and the next person. The reality is you're never going to meet all the players before you get in the game. It just won't work that way. You got to get in the game, and then you'll start to evolve and meet the people that you need at those points in time. So, for people out there that's trying to, get it all packaged and figured out, it won't ever work like that. You have to start. That's just the function of how it works.
No, I agree. Totally agree. So in saying all this stuff, like, what is your long-term goals?
So I tell people all the time that right now I mentor people in real estate, right? But real estate is what I do. Mentoring and connecting and helping people is who I am. And so I see that, evolving into other platforms at some point in time. I'm not quite sure exactly yet. I've started this fireside chat that I started during COVID, beginning of COVID, to just administer hope, educate people on finances, educate people on real estate, teach people about spirituality, how to prune and develop healthy environments. And that's something I find a lot of joy in. And I've been doing it for free every day for 5 months since COVID started. And, so I lean on God a lot for direction. I don't have it all figured out. That's the beauty of it all. I just got enough faith that he has something great in store. And so as long as I keep taking those blind steps, that the path is there. But ultimately, I want to be well diverse in terms of investments. I've been working on that already. I got a passive number that I like to hit at some point. I got a net worth number that I like to hit by 50. But as you know, those are just quantifiable goals, but the journey is what's the real important piece. And, but I want to help people. And if it's in real estate, great. I don't know that I'll be mentoring students in the capacity I am for years to come, but we certainly are right now. And I'm telling people, if you want to work with us, to get off the fence, come on over and let's get it done. Now is a great time to take advantage in the market. Everybody's like, well, I'm gonna wait until COVID's over. Like that couldn't be any worse of a strategy. Now is the time. When there's blood in the water, there's opportunity. And, there's a lot of people, unfortunately, who are unemployed, and, it's not taking advantage of them. It's actually helping them in a very duress situation to where you can help them kind of get some foundation, and as well as, get compensated in the process. It's a win-win for everybody. And so for those of you that's out there trying to wait for this thing to end, number one, who knows when that is? I think this is a part of our new normal, personally. And real estate is a skill set that once you develop it, you can do it for years to come. This is not I got to buy it and use it today. It's an investment in yourself that you can use for a lifetime. I've been doing this 14 years. Chris has been doing it for a very long time himself. And, I just encourage people right now, having a second stream of income is no longer a luxury. It's a necessity.
That's well said. And I don't even really have anything I can comment on it. You said it so well. God has a plan for all of us. You just need to understand that and take that leap and understand you'll know if it's not the right leap, and you'll be told. And then you just got to realize what those signs are and follow them. So folks, this has been incredible. A lot of golden nuggets here. Brian, if people want to work with you, if people want to learn more about you, where's the best place they can find you?
Sure. I would encourage everyone to go to my Instagram. It's Brian_Adamson1. You can find me on Instagram, and then you can also go to the website at bbreducation.com. And also, we have an online full comprehensive education module. You can learn at your own pace, but we literally teach you everything from how to form your LLC, how to evaluate deals, how to flip homes remotely, how to have good CPA practices. And it's called iFlip University. All right. So go to iflip.university. And it's a free mini course out there. Go check it out. And I just encourage you guys to get started, whether you do something with me or not. I just encourage everyone to go ahead, get off the fence, do yourself a favor, do your family a favor, and start improving your situation. Real estate is the best investment out there. I'm investing in a lot of different platforms, but it's a tangible asset that you can diversify in so many different ways. And everyone needs to experience it at some point in their life.
Well said, Brian. All right, everybody, you heard it. Great golden nuggets. Make sure you go to his IG, his Instagram, and iFlip University. Check out his free content. And if you're looking for someone that can really take you down the path the right way, Brian's your guy. So folks, we talked about a lot today. We also talked about your journey to becoming a rebel banker. You already know what that requires. It requires knowledge and application of the knowledge, taking action on what you learned here today. So are you going to take action? I gave you a challenge earlier. The book that will change your life, Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery, hands down, helped 3,000 plus people with that book. And then this one, you need money, you can have Brian do it. You can read this book. That's going to give you the gateway to where all the money is to fund your deals. The question is, are you going to take that leap? That's your challenge. So folks, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Real Estate Money School. We'll see you next time.